It's good to take into context is in the past 5 years, wind power represents over 1/3 of the new U.S. capacity of electric generation. So if you were to look at the slide closely, I realize it'd be hard to read for the audience, but perhaps some of the commissioners can see. You'll see that Apex has quite a few projects in the works, not only for 2015, but 16 as well. And the timber mill project at 300 megawatts, we hope to build by 2017. The point of this slide, I think, is to try to illustrate to you that this is a mature technology, that Apex is a proven company capable of delivering clean, safe, renewable energy projects. Next slide, please. This slide is essentially to highlight some of the developments that have occurred recently in North Carolina with respect to wind power. As I'm sure you've heard of Iberdrola's project in Pasquotank and Perquimans counties. It just broke ground recently, and I want to just kind of highlight a couple of similarities between that project and the timber mill project. First of all, project size. The project in your neighboring counties was originally slated at about 300 megawatts, and I believe they're building 208 in the first phase. Our project, as I just mentioned, is as planned to be a 300 megawatt project, which would deliver the equivalent of about electricity for about 65,000 North Carolina homes. Another similarity, there are vast agricultural and forestry lands in both projects. Both projects were cited to consider minimal impacts on military preparedness and wildlife impacts as well. And the final observation I would make is that both are in 2 counties, and the counties that they're each in, as you've heard other speakers observe, Pasquotank, Perquimans, and Chowan have similar ordinances. Finally, by way of update, I just thought I would mention from a press release that Governor McCrory put out, his quote, that the Amazon wind farm is a significant step toward diversifying North Carolina's energy resources. And bringing onshore wind production to North Carolina is part of my, quote, all of the above energy strategy. By diversifying our resources, we can provide affordable, reliable, and secure sources of energy that are environmentally clean and safe. Next slide, please. Now to get into some of the specifics of the timber mill project. For those of you in the back, I'll highlight some of the text that you might not be able to see. But to date, we have about 14,000 acres of land under lease, so we are currently paying landowners for those leases. We have 2 SODAR units in place with 2 years of data collected. That's part of the research under the R&D plan. You have to do the research to collect the wind data, and these SODAR units are kind of like a radar device that shoots a signal quite high into the sky, takes a measurement, and returns it. We have 2 of those that have been deployed for quite a while, and of course they're showing good results. If the results were not good, then we would not continue to make the investment, but the results have been very good. We also have a conventional meteorological tower in place in Perquimans County. That has precise measurements up to about 200 feet. Again, necessary for us to continue our investment. We're in the 3rd and final stages of interconnection studies. Now the interconnection studies are done with, in this case, Dominion and PJM, who's a grid operator. This is a 3-phase study process, and it's quite extensive and expensive. But we are in the final stage of the 3-stage process. One of the stages earlier has confirmed that the capacity exists for that line. We can put all 300 megawatts on that line that runs from Hertford to Eaton along the railroad tracks. When we finish the final phase of that interconnection study, we will have invested millions of dollars in that process. And then finally, I just will observe that we spent hundreds of hours studying wildlife activity and habitat in the area. We're studying wildlife use patterns. We've had helicopters that have to have biologists on board that observe where the eagles' nests are in the vicinity. And we have only observed those in areas actually outside of the project area. But all of these studies, all these wildlife studies are done according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife guidelines. They're very specific, and we've put quite a bit of time into those studies already to date. We have spent a good deal of time in the community. Apex is very interested in being a part of your community and being a good neighbor. You can see between the Rocky Hawk Ruritans and Ryland Ruritans, Edenton Rotary Club, the Paquimans County Chamber of Commerce, the Paquimans Farm Bureau, D.F. Walker Alumni Association, and the Center Hill Crossroads Fire Department, we have done presentations in the community and taken questions. Taken a great deal of questions regarding this project, and we would like to continue to do that. We think it's a very important part of establishing a good relationship in the county. We've also been involved in other community events that you can see there, from sponsoring a Steamers game to the livestock auction and other events. For a moment, if I could, regarding the boundary, and again, I'm sure in the back of the room it'd be hard to see the map on the left, but our project, the study area for it, is well defined. You probably can at least see the diagonal line to the right of the slide, or the right of the map, and that represents the railroad tracks and the power line that, as I mentioned, run from Edenton to Hertford. And that is where we will need to interconnect. That's where we will need to have our substation. And that really is what forms and frames the project. All of the electrical lines from the turbines have to meet at the substation that will be along that line. And so it's a matter of economics that you have to stay within a centralized area or proximity of that line. Therefore, we intend to stay, as we have said before, we will be staying east of Green Hall and south of Tyner and to the sort of west and north of 17. We can't go beyond that, not only because of the proximity of the power line that we need to build our substation, but because all of the studies we've done to date have been focused on that area. It's a couple years of studies, as I just mentioned, observing wildlife and habitat. That's where we hope to build a project, is within that study area. Yeah, next. Oh, you know what, I'm sorry, can you back it up one moment? I just thought that I would also quickly mention, on the right is text from the ordinance, from the county's ordinance. That was pulled directly from the ordinance. And I just want to give one example of what is in the ordinance. And the point that I would like to make here is there is decommissioning language in the ordinance. And by that it means there's language in the ordinance that requires, that sets the specifications for the developer to meet in the event that there's some sort of default, or at the end of the life of the project, perhaps if Apex were not still the developer or the owner of the project. So there's conditions that are set, decommissioning, and it's spelled out very clearly in the ordinance as it exists right now. And the point that I would like to make in particular is that the ordinance requires that before a building permit would be issued to a developer, that a cash bond or irrevocable letter of credit has to be in the county's possession, such that the county can call it into a bank at their leisure when they want. So when there's a concern, and it's a valid concern for what might happen in these turbines, would the landowner be left with the bill to tear them down in the county? The answer is no. The ordinance already provides for that to be assured by the letter of credit or the cash bond that the developer has to post. Thank you for going back, and then I guess I just have a couple more slides. The next one I would like just to point out with respect to the conditional use process. This is the real opportunity for full and complete review. Apex or any other developer would have to submit a very detailed application with specific locations of turbines, specific locations of roads, electrical collection, substations. All of these things would have to be in a very detailed application to the county when the conditional use permit process begins. This process is dictated by North Carolina statute and allows the commissioners to review this detailed information. And furthermore, I think it's important to point out that in that process, the county has opportunities to strengthen or clarify permit requirements. And I'll give you an example. With respect to sound, the county could require that there be third-party verification as to the amount of sound that is at any given residence. So an engineering firm, whoever, some party other than the county or Apex, they could verify the amount of sound that's at any given point. Then the county could require that Apex must comply with the sound ordinance. And if the verification shows that we're not complying, the county can enforce a certain condition on Apex or another developer. So there still is a good deal of opportunity for the full and complete review, which we've talked about and heard about earlier. And that, I think, is in the CUP process. Finally, last slide, if you would please. I would just mention that, I think this project, much like you see the quote here from a gentleman from Elizabeth City, who I think spoke at the groundbreaking for the Iberdrola project. There's a steady revenue stream here, the potential for 20 to 30 years of very steady revenue for the county and landowners. That's an opportunity to diversify the economy, and no infrastructure is required by the county. No infrastructure. Infrastructure costs would be on the developer. So if I could, just in closing, ask that you please consider that Apex has been developing the timber mill project in accordance with the 2013 ordinance. We received these marching orders and we have been faithfully designing and developing the project as the county has specified according to that ordinance. We would ask that you please affirm the adequacy of the existing ordinance by not placing wind projects in limbo. Please leave the ordinance as it is. Thank you.